yourself to the tribe here, and then we will just shoot the shit here, man. My YouTube is not working, so we're going to remove YouTube there. That's fine. No one watches on YouTube anyway. We are live. Let's make sure that we're moving over here. 1 second. Hang tight with me, folks. There we go. Great. What is happening, everybody? We are live across a few platforms. For some reason, YouTube is being temperamental today. I don't know what's happening over there in the old YouTube machine, but it is... Are we still in April, Tomaszs? What are we at May? Did we cross over? Did we make it through? I mean, I felt like March was like 1,000 days and April went by in 2 seconds.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy. You know, I think it's a difficult time for all of us. Kind of, you know, life has slowed down, I think, in many ways. Time for great reflection and just reassessment where we are in our lives. But, you know, I think just like everything else, this Corona thing will pass. And like I always say, we will be that much stronger, you know, to follow.
We will definitely make it. So let's do some proper intros. We are loading up here. It is lunchtime here on the East Coast. And you're in Dallas, Texas, correct? Right outside of Dallas?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we had the pleasure to meet in September at the LinkedIn Talent Connect. I did an event at the City Central right outside of Dallas. And I'm like, wow, that's the tallest motherfucker I've ever seen in my life. Who is this guy? And he turned out to be one of the nicest guys that I've had the pleasure of meeting in the last year. Always providing value. He made some great introductions for me. And I think it's so awesome too. Like, you know, I mean, I know I'm a good guy, but you didn't know I was a good guy right away. And you opened up your your role.
No, you're not.
And you made and Tomaszs, you made some awesome introductions. And I just wanted to thank you before we get started here.
Oh, absolutely. That's, you know, I think being a good resource and a connector is what we can do for each other, no matter what, specifically using this great tool that LinkedIn is. So if I know somebody's objective and a purpose, and if it's articulated well, and I know how I can help them, I always try to do it because I have, you know, a level of understanding that a lot of people did the same for me at some point in my life. So just trying to pay it forward, man.
Yeah, paying it forward is such a mature life concept that some people, you know, get early on, right? And they can build a career based on that, based on long-term relationships. And some people know nothing wrong with that. Like they don't learn that lesson, you know, till a little later on. So let's do some proper intros here. It is the 28th day of the month of April, right? And Sean, we've done this a few times already, and I feel like I've said this in March, and I've said this in earlier.
I don't even know what day it is. I have no idea what time it is.
I literally woke up this morning.
No, yeah.
I'm not even shitting. I woke up this morning and thought it was Sunday morning. I really thought it was Sunday morning. And the only difference between a Sunday and a Tuesday for me is Sunday I'm not working and I'm with the kids all day, except for a partial day here. So Tomaszs, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. Really certainly appreciate it. And we'll get to your memorabilia collection in the back there in a minute. But why don't we just take a moment? I'd love if you could introduce yourself to everyone tuning in. Tell everyone kind of who you are and what you do best, my man.
So first and foremost, Adam and Sean, thanks so much for having me. It's you know, I've been a fan of your show and a follower, so you know, I'm grateful to be on. And as far as what I do, I just started a new job. You know, the majority of my career I spent in outside sales. I'm a first generation immigrant and came to US in 2006. I'm a Southern Methodist University alum here in Dallas. Studied marketing and dispute resolution for my master's. You know, after the basketball career kind of was over on the collegiate level, I realized that I want to do something long term, and I dedicated myself in really expanding, you know, my sales career. So battled some immigration law obstacles along the way, but you know, finally was able to secure a green card late last fall, and that allowed me to really kind of think more strategically about my career, and I just got hired on that note with Project 202, which has been a blessing, you know, to really be onboarded by an organization that really helps customers with digital transformations. That's kind of what we do. It's very experience driven model. And the fact that they onboarded me during coronavirus, it's a blessing.
Yeah.
I take that for granted, and it's going to be a fun ride. I already know this and sense this.
I love it, man. And let's go back a little bit. So as I mentioned before, so we first met in Dallas, and I was hosting an event at City Central there with Julian and Craig Fisher. We had a tremendous conversation, Lila Smith, real solid Dallas crew, and it was a great turnout for that event. And we had an opportunity to chat afterwards and connect. And as I mentioned earlier, you opened up some relationships to me. I had Michael on my show last week, and we had a fantastic conversation. He actually just started. He is now heading up tech recruitment for a little company called Google.
Yeah, very little.
Crazy. So, Sean,
Wow.
quick note. So, Michael, former head of talent at PayPal, CBRE, just a tremendous background, a real TA leader. We had a great chat last week.
That's a good person to have in your corner.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's just fun, and aside from the fact that he's a Yankees fan, aside from that fact, we'll certainly let it go. So, Tomaszs, fun fact, you're a TEDx speaker. You've been there, you've done that. I'd love if you could kind of walk us through your TEDx journey, because I think it's important for people to understand the process and the amount of work that goes into it. But let's kind of start with the application process all the way through what your thesis and talk was about.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for that question. To be honest with you, I've never thought that I would be able even to do it. If going back to 2006, 2007, when I was struggling to articulate, sentences in English, to progression to college and really taking some practical courses like art of acting and public speaking that really helped me understand how important that is to be able to speak in front of audiences and present and speak. I think if you can develop that skill, everything else kind of can come to follow. But I think being able to present yourself and articulate, I think it's critical for every professional out there. And specifically with TEDx Frisco, Julian actually was very generous, our mutual friend. He nominated me. He said that this would be fantastic for me. And
Julian Placino, yeah,
Julian Placino, big shout out to Julian, a close friend of mine for many years. And so we've developed a relationship, and the event was taken in Frisco, where the last 4 years or so, I really spent a lot of time building relationships and adding value to the local community, not only from a business perspective, but also nonprofit, which is kind of my hobby and my passion, nonprofit world. So I became aware of this event and, kind of talked to Julian about it, and, never thought I would be approved. I think we had about 300 applications. It's a first event. I think it will take place for several years at least. And only about 14 speakers / performers were selected. So you really had to, provide kind of a little bit of your background, obviously, the purpose. What are you trying to talk about? What is your merit? What is your objective for that event? So I really just try to be myself and kind of showcase a little bit of my story. And next thing you know, I got approved. And I want to give shout out to Trillian Small, who's our host and organizer, who is a TEDx speaker herself. She spoke, and she wanted, through this TED Frisco platform, give an opportunity to other people to perform as well. And she put us through this program of preparation and improv work.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into it, right? I mean, it's not just get up there and do your keynote speech. I mean, it has to be unique, it has to be different, it has to be focused, and it's a lot of pressure, right? When you're on that red dot up there, it's game time.
Absolutely. So she did a tremendous job really prepping us. We met, I think, weekly, then every 2 weeks, doing some improv work, doing some training, working on our scripts, reciting the script to each other, giving feedback from one another. It was just fantastic to see everybody grow. And more importantly, it was like a little fraternity of these speakers and performers. And I was just blessed to be in that group because everybody was so bright, so accomplished in their careers. And I was just happy to have my little place in it.
Yeah. So what was the thesis of your TEDx talk?
So the overarching theme was humility. And my younger brother, who lives in Poland, my whole family lives in Poland still, told him about what I wanted to do. He said, we both like Kendrick Lamar, and he had this verse in his song, "Sit Down, Be Humble." So that's kind of or he has it reverse. I think so. So this was the title of the speech. And what I wanted to do is just first and foremost be myself, because if you are a speaker and if you are trying to convey a message that is supposed to be of value to the audience that watches you, they will be able to tell very quickly if you're full of BS or not.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? I think this will be a tremendous platform to showcase vulnerability, to showcase some of my experiences. So I really digged into some experiences in my life that I haven't shared with many people, and wanted to go take the audience through that journey and really deploy some lessons and some factual experiences that helped me, to go through it along the way, and then kind of finish it off with something to leave off of, which was a good summary, good conclusion. Just kind of like a good movie you're watching, and you want to leave the show and keep thinking about it.
Right. You want to take everybody on a journey there. So let's get into that TED Talk for a minute. And correct me if I'm wrong. What do you have? You have about 12 minutes. What's the time limit on TEDx?
So we were limited to about 12 minutes.
Yeah.
I believe 13 minutes, if I remember correctly.
And if people don't know, that's a long time, right? To stand up there and talk. And I don't know if anyone's tried like stand-up comedy. Right. It goes quick. And listen, you're no stranger to the spotlight. I mean, you played, was it Division 1, Division 2?
Yes, Division 1.
Division 1 ball. I mean, that's prime time, man. Right. And I assume you played center.
Yeah.
This guy's tall, Sean, if I haven't said that before.
You did. How tall are we? How tall are you, Tomasz?
7 feet. 7 feet.
Oh, I thought you were exaggerating.
No.
Like legit 7 feet tall.
And the jersey.
What is that like? Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, go for it.
What is it like?
I mean, are people asking to change light bulbs? I mean, is it get down to that?
It comes handy, specifically
top shelf at the supermarket, Home Depot. Right?
Exactly. I think it's a little bit like a magnet, man. I always say everybody has something that is particular to them, that is unique, that is a blessing, there's a skill, that is a physical feature. And it took me a while to realize this and kind of contextualize the true blessing that being that tall is. And I just try to use it in my life as a benefit in my professional life. I think it makes me memorable. I can build relationships, and it positions me in my organization, Project 202, that much stronger in the market, because it's all about being memorable and providing value.
Executive presence in the sales world.
It's an icebreaker too. I mean, it's a conversation starter. And that jersey behind you, that's definitely not actual size, right? I mean, that cannot be an actual size jersey behind you. But let's talk about that mindset in sports, right? That discipline, the practice, translating that into your professional career. I mean, you had that mindset going in, but let's talk about some subtle differences, right? Like you had the dedication, the commitment, and everything. But where were there some kind of missing links? Like, did you have an idea in your head like this is going to be an easy transition, or where did you find some challenges going from your college career, your college sports career, into the professional working world?
So with me, and I'm grateful for the question. A lot of it is actually in my speech. If some of those folks that are interested, they can check it out. But
yeah, we'll link it up after.
I definitely I experienced some success in Poland, where I was a part of like a junior team, and we were very successful, won a national championship. I was on the youth national team playing across Europe. Life was good, and I thought I'm headed only forward from here. But then you get to college, and I really didn't play much. I averaged maybe 2 minutes per game, if that. And so that was a challenge in itself, and there was a big believe it or not, one of the biggest challenges and things I had to face. And that opened up this umbrella of like, okay, I cannot put all eggs in one basket, right? Like I cannot just be an athlete. I have to think about life after basketball. And thankfully, because of my upbringings, my dad was a Polish veteran, and his two brothers and that served, and my grandpa was a cop. I've always had that instilled. Education first, if possible, and then everything else comes second. They prepared me for that, so I was ready. I was ready to just to understand that sports is on an interim basis, and you have to sooner than later make a strategic transition. So the sooner you open yourself up to different fields and themes and topics of interest, the better.
No, that's awesome. Sean, anything you want to add in here? Any questions?
First off, I mean, it's just, it's amazing that you only came over here in 2006 and you have this, you're extremely articulate for being in this. It's amazing. I would have never thought, like, it's amazing.
You should see my video from 06. You would
I'd actually love to see that. Like, as like
we're gonna link up his TEDx and we're gonna link up his college admission. But Tomaszs, were you learning English in Poland before you got here, or how much of it did you speak when you came over?
Yes. So another great question. So I started I think I started learning German in kindergarten, but then I didn't really like it that much. And English, I think fourth grade is where we start learning English in schools. And I was also fortunate. I got some exposure to, actual speakers from UK. So I was, talking to them, trying to learn as much as I can to at least, understand what's being talked to you and at least communicate on the basic level. And I think that's what I was able to do when I first got here. And then it was just about, understanding the cultural differences, understanding, the slangs, the shortcuts, vocabulary, putting sticky notes on my wall, like, okay, this is what I got to do. So it's English as a second language, but it's not an excuse anymore. I mean, I can.
No, especially in Dallas, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question though, and I love it because my wife's family immigrated here from Russia, and I have a lot of friends too where English is not their first language, and a lot of them tell really funny stories about there were certain movies or certain athletes that they love, and they literally start by literally quoting Coming to America, right? Like that's how they, were there any movies or any athletes, and one of my friends he goes Michael Jordan, that was like the first thing he could say. Right. Like, was there a particular movie or any type of celebrity, that you followed English speaking to learn?
I was always, I think through basketball, just watching NBA. I think late because of the time difference, it was late nights, watching, the Chicago Bulls era with the documentary right now released.
I know. I got that on tap, man.
Yeah, I got to check that out too. I heard it.
So watching Jordan, watching the Bulls, then Kobe and Shaq, and then the D Wade era and LeBron era, obviously. So I think I honed in the most and was able to make that fluid transition to English language because of athletics.
Right.
The more, in essence, if somebody is learning a foreign language and what's some value there, the more data you can consume in the area of your interest, whether it's news, whether it's sports, whether it's travel, just consume, have a podcast in a foreign language that you can put on your AirPods and listen to it. Because if you just speak, that's not enough. You have to really be acquainted with those foreign speakers. Correct. That way this internalizes it.
So let me ask you this. We talk about the teamwork and the camaraderie on the court. How does that translate off the court into business? And how do you bring that to, you mentioned congratulations, you're starting a new job. Like, how do you bring that, mentality? How do you bring that, the enthusiasm that you learned on the court, off the court?
I think it just comes down to, again, humble beginnings, understanding that, you went through a roller coaster to get where you are today through immigration and everything else. And appreciation for everything, all the great teammates, the friendships that you've established, the fraternity that you were part of for a lifetime, and then being able to just be a leader and carry that over to workforce, because not everybody has been blessed to play individual athletics. Not everybody played sports to begin with. So I think if you can just understand their perspective, that not everybody is an athlete, and be able to relate. That's what I think will always, and it's that much more easier to build these relationships. And what I like about Project 202 specifically is they deploy exactly that, is that multidisciplinary kind of collaboration in a sales process as we uncover potential solutions. Literally, we have an expert in design, technology, project management, and sales collaborating all together to really get from the start point to the finish line, which is a team effort. It's literally, I don't think I've seen a company that does it in such a great collaborative way that literally mirrors what I used to do on the court, because everybody got involved.
That's great. And our next guest, I'm going to bring in a few minutes, Sara Johnston's a career expert too. And you know, I'll ask a question. Sean and I are both recruiters. You know, what was it about this company that really attracted you? There's a great market in Dallas. There's lots of opportunities there. Why did this one stand out?
So I just part of the response, I think, was just articulated, is the way they approach the business from a multidisciplinary approach and collaborative spirit. There's so many people that I collaborate with from different facets, different disciplines, to get to the finish line and actually sell. But more importantly for me, guys, it was just alignment, you know, of values. I spent a lot of time reflecting kind of, okay, what's for me? You know, I've spent a long time battling immigration issues and having different jobs. And for me, it was a little horizontal, like different industries, you know, different jobs, different solutions. But like, okay, what do I enjoy the most? Again, self-awareness. And then how can I align my values versus organization values? And with them specifically, what stuck out to me is just a very organic process from a recruiting perspective. Super dynamic, super organic, vibrant.
Organic's a key word there. Organic's definitely a key word.
It's great communicators. So what stood out, just last point, if they have such great nucleus and chemistry during coronavirus, I'm like, their office must be lit.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's talk about that too. When did you start the interview process? I mean, I know Dallas locked down a little bit after New York. Did you have an opportunity to meet any of these folks in person before you accepted the job? Let's talk about the process a little bit, because obviously they did a good job. They brought you in, they hired you, you're onboarding remotely right now. I mean, Texas is opening up soon, so you'll probably get into the office, but walk us through that process there during the coronavirus.
Yeah, so I first and foremost, I want to just offer empathy and understanding for everybody that is getting laid off or furloughed. That's extremely difficult, and I'm here in the middle of everything, getting a job. So I want to recognize that, and very grateful for this. But I think
there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's great that people are hiring right now. We want people to hire. We want companies to hire, but just be mindful. Listen, you're as humble as they come, man. Right. But you hit the nail on the head. You have to be empathetic that there's people out there struggling. It's a good note. I appreciate that.
There's absolutely there. So I had about 4 interviews in person before Corona hit, and then about 5 or 6 Zoom interviews to follow with different experts in different disciplines. So they did, their due diligence for sure in different areas. So it was a very well-educated decision for not only for me, but for them, more importantly, because they decided to make that investment.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's awesome. So I want to
and
talk.
By the way, we are hiring, I think, 4 BDs in Chicago. I think it's Chicago and San Francisco. I think it's posted on LinkedIn. So
Cool.
Anybody that is watching, seasoned BD folks that love software and kind of multidisciplinary collaboration and sales process, definitely look into it.
And if they need any recruiters for help in that, you got Sean and I right here that could certainly.
That's our sweet spot. That's a sweet spot.
Sean, what are your thoughts here? So I bring Sean on because him and I are collaborators, conspirators and collaborators over here. We are cut from the same cloth as recruiters here. Sean, what do you have to add? I mean, what questions you got for this guy?
Oof, man, what questions do I have?
I mean, if you're gonna sit in the co-pilot seat, you got to jump in and fly the plane sometimes, man.
Yeah, I get it, man. I get it. I mean, I have so many questions about the college basketball, but one of the things I definitely wanted to ask you was just in terms of, how the game of basketball, how do you think that molded you into a salesperson, right? Because we all look for, the biggest thing on a resume in terms of sales, especially when it's, once you get to a certain level, right? Like, were they college athletes? Like, what was being a college athlete? What did that teach you about being in sales?
So I think it's just a unique level of understanding, how to operate in a team-oriented environment, because you've seen it all. You've seen the ups, you've seen downs. And, ultimately, when you're in college and you're on a full scholarship, if you're fortunate, and I was, you really have no life. I mean, you just got to be real. Your schedule is basically put together for you.
Yeah.
Starts very early in the morning, finishes very late at night. So if you can go through this rigorous schedule for 4 years and perform at the highest level and get good grades, what is there out there that is potentially not possible for you to do in the workforce as a sales professional?
Yeah.
So I think,
being very organized and having that being
organized, being disciplined, time, a focus on time, punctuation, all the little things. And I think it's not only athletics, but kind of your upbringings and more importantly, your parents, what they teach you at home. And then
fantastic.
I was blessed because I had amazing parents, and then that put me in a position to be really happy in life. And then the coaches kind of took it from there. So certain things are just second nature to me. And I think that's what separates athletes. And if you see those athletes on the resume, typically, you just hand them the tools and they figure it out.
Awesome. Right. Tomaszs, so let's bring it home here. And a question that I'm asking every guest, especially on these live shows that I'm doing during the pandemic, I'd love for you to share one personal silver lining you've experienced over the last 7 weeks and one professional silver lining.
So what do you mean by that? Like as far as
silver lining is something, a silver lining is something amazing that happened during this time that you weren't expecting, right? Something that's a blessing, something that's so awesome that happened that probably wouldn't have happened in any other time.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely getting that job, was just an amazing set of circumstances and kind of almost bittersweet ending to everything that I went through. One of my friends even said, you went through a lot of stuff, and if anybody should be getting a job now is you. So I don't take that lightly. I've worked very hard to get where I am, and again, I don't take that for granted, and I know I'm going to work my tail off to advance in my career, and hopefully because of Project 202 and this, because their acquisition of me, I will be able to take my career vertical and grow that much more. So that was probably the biggest that has happened recently, and again, I'm grateful for that.
That's fantastic, Tomaszs. Thank you so much for joining us today. Where could folks find you? Where could they connect with you?
Here, LinkedIn is perfect. I'm an open collaborator, networker. Send me a message if it's purposeful and you have an objective that you want to accomplish, and I can help you. I will help you. I try to respond to pretty much everyone. And then other social networks, just Tomaszs 14, TOMASZ 14, pretty much on all channels. So feel free to reach out, and I'll see what I can do to help you guys out.
Hey, my man, I appreciate you. Everything you can do, I'm here for you as well. Anything else you need, hopefully I'll get back out to Dallas soon. Anytime you're in New York, guest of Sean and I.
In there, just a quick question, how are you doing?
Well, Sean and I are trapped with our families right now, and I think we have about another week left before we lose our minds here. No, just kidding. I mean, we're lucky. Sean actually lives. I think we got 2 more weeks here in New York before we start to open up a little bit. But Sean and I live literally. I mean, we live about 15 minutes apart. We're diner buddies. Diners are a big thing here in Long Island. Literally, you could go to a diner, and I don't know if they have these in Texas, right? You could go to a diner and you could have anything like a breakfast burrito all the way up to like a gourmet steak. Well, I use gourmet lightly there, right? But like, it's London broil, right? You could get a London broil or a stuffed crab chicken meat. Diners are great, man. Sorry, going off on a diner tangent.
I love New York, and next time, one of my goals is to go to U.S. Open. I don't know if this year will be happening. I want to see Roger Federer. I've never seen him play, and I want to see him play. So
yeah,
that would, if I go, I'll definitely ping you guys, and
yeah, definitely, dude.
We can get a happy hour or something.
Absolutely. Tomaszs, thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Appreciate you so much.
Bye.
All right, now it's Sean and I. I'm going to bring on our next guest, our 1:30 time slot guest. You guys know her. We'll bring her on. Sara Johnston, welcome to the podcast. Good to see you.
Hey guys, good to see you again.
Welcome back. And one quick technical thing I just want to appreciate. I like when guests come on early and they set up and they make sure that they're operational. So thank you for doing that. So it's been a long time. It's great to connect. Sara was one of my first guests. I think it's been almost
number 7, I think.
Lucky number 7. And we had a tremendous conversation back there. We got super tactical, and we're going to do some updates on that as well. But why don't you just quickly introduce yourself to my audience? Tell everyone who does not know you. And you're up to 260,000 followers on LinkedIn. So I assume a lot of people.
260,000.
We'll get to the growth in a little bit, but I'd love if you could just do a quick intro and tell us who you are and what you do best, Sara.
Sure. I am a job search coach and resume writer and interview coach. And what I do best is helping high performers get focused on their job search and come up with a very strategic action plan and branding to help them land the job that they're excited about.
Excellent. And some of the type of folks that you work with, is it cross industries? Do you have like any kind of niches that you really find yourself being called to from an expertise perspective?
I'm a generalist, so I work with people really across all industries. I get a lot of calls from people in the medical space because I was a healthcare recruiter. But I mean, I love some of my favorite clients are sales and operations executives or marketing leaders. So I don't discriminate. I work across industries.
That's fantastic. And just for everyone else, like, how did you get your start? How did you go? I mean, I know a little bit about your background, but how did you shift into, focus consulting around coaching and career advisory?
Well, kind of like you guys, I was a recruiter and had done that, loved recruiting. It was really a gratifying career for me. But I hit a point where I wanted to work for myself, kind of like maybe where you guys are as well. And I wanted to build a business that I could be proud of. And when I looked at where I was good at and where people often called on me, it was in helping them put their best foot forward for interviews or for job searches. And so it was something that people had asked me to do really for years and years. And I just turned it into a business and started monetizing it.
Let's take us back. And I didn't ask this on the podcast, but take us back to that first paying client. How did you get that first client to pay? Or like, what was that? Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah.
This is a funny story. So I kind of put my foot in the water before I left my job. Before I started my officially started my business, I created a Yelp page. And I had a Yelp page that advertised I was a resume writer and job search coach. And this guy calls me and he's like, I'm going to do the voice. Okay.
Oh, we got some acting here. Sean's a good actor. So if you need someone to role play with, you could we could workshop this.
All right. He was great. He was so great. He's like, Sarah, I found you on Yelp and you're my girl. I've heard so many great things about you and I'm confident you can help me out here. And I was like, okay, I didn't know people were talking about me at this point. And so I just kind of went with it and I was like, sure, I'd love to help you. And anyways, ended up working with his son and got to help his son find employment. And I'll tell you, I gave every ounce of myself to this client. And I was brand new, wasn't charging very much. They got their money's worth out of me for sure. But it was a really cool process for me and a transformative process in my business. And so just kind of seeing the evidence of what I could do and the impact that I could have on somebody's life, made me want to do it full time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And one of the things that I think really solidified, listen, there's a lot of coaches out there. There's a lot of gurus. And I always say, just because you're good at building followers or an audience or likes on LinkedIn, that does not make you a career coach. It does not make you, it barely makes you a LinkedIn coach too, because you're only focused on growing the audience. But the piece that I really love about your background from a credibility standpoint is the fact that you are a recruiter. So you're speaking from experience. You understand how hiring managers think. You understand, sorry, you're getting my son upstairs. Daddy's on a podcast. We're live, people. Anything goes. But you really understand that. You never know what's going to happen. He might come down here for a guest appearance. But you bring that perspective. So now I want to fast forward. Now it's April 2020. I think we're in April. We're close to May. Somehow we almost made it to May. We almost made it there. But things have changed, right? And things have changed a lot. Let's talk about how you have pivoted and shifted your strategy working with clients now during the time of coronavirus.
I haven't pivoted or shifted my strategy at all. My messaging remains very consistent that now is the time to get ready. And I'm seeing a lot of people hesitate to make moves right now, or they are sitting furloughed and they're collecting unemployment right now. And they're like, well, I'm getting $600 a month plus whatever my state allowed me to get. And this is pretty good money. And I'm just going to wait it out. And I'm telling people that reach out to me, I'm saying that's a mistake.
Agreed.
Now's the time to get your documents ready, build your network, have the conversations, get ahead of everybody else that's sitting on the sidelines so that when hiring does pick up, you're one of the very first people that hiring managers think about. And I'll also say this, hiring is happening.
Oh, it is.
100%.
I'm busy. I got busy.
I'm super busy. I have, and I say that, with the understanding that there are people or companies not in the same category, but we're really busy as a company that I'm contracting with. I mean, sales, marketing, like you name it, we're going.
It's industry specific, but you hit the nail on the head too, because you don't want to be at the starting line. You want to be at the finish line. You want to be rounding third base, heading from home. And I have the same conversations with my clients too. I go, even if you're not ready to pull the trigger on a hire right now, right, get people down the process. And Sean and I keep talking, it's about communication from a hiring manager standpoint. Keeping candidates informed of the process, where they stand in the process and where your company is, in that hiring process. And it works both ways with candidates too. But Sarah, you hit the nail on the head. An interesting question that I've seen posed on LinkedIn is, if you're out of work right now, should you take, quote, any job that you get offered on, or should you wait it out? What's kind of your philosophy here? And let's just baseline here. We're assuming that you're not in like financial struggles, that you're okay. So like, just generally speaking.
So, I have a different answer for both scenarios. If you're in the dire straits, you may have to take a job to pay the bills. If your family needs food, there is no shame in working at Home Depot if that's where you are right now. And you can always get that next job later. You've got to make the decision that will put food on the table. That being said, if you've got an emergency savings account and can be selective, I think you need to have an abundance mindset at this time, and don't look at the job numbers. Don't look at unemployment and say, oh, nobody's hiring. This is the only opportunity that I'm going to have in the next 6 months. If you can look at it and say, I'm going to just focus on conversations, focus on connecting with people, people are going to be hiring. There's going to be more problems that need to be solved because of COVID-19 than before. And that's where unemployment, or that's where opportunities happen, is when you can solve a problem.
Yeah. Sean, you had a thought there?
Yeah, no, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's going to be so much, there are going to be so many more problems that were caused by COVID, that companies are going to be finding solutions. And in order to solve solutions, you need people. So you're 100% right.
Yeah,
well, the other thing that I'm a product of the last recession. I graduated right when the bottom dropped and all the jobs dried up. And I've studied what's going on, like what happened in 2007 and 2008. And ironically, and this is going to be cool for you guys, is that so much innovation happened. Like if you look at the Forbes list from 3 years ago, a third of the companies on the Forbes most growing companies were started during the last recession.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna see Zoom. I've been using Zoom for a long time, and I still kick myself for not investing a couple bucks into it. But nobody saw this coming, right? Nobody saw this coming. But Zoom is going to be, here to stay, right? Because telecommuting, teleworking, conference calling, this is all gonna stay, and you'll see this really develop into more than just a product that we're using today. It'll be so many more services, and I wouldn't be surprised if they get bought by one of the big boys pretty soon as well. That's absolute. But then you look at all the other companies that came out of it, and it's all in necessity breeds invention, right? And is that what the saying is? Something like that, right?
I don't know.
Where do you see from a recruiting perspective? Let's talk about the process here. No one knows what I'm talking about.
No.
Are you coaching candidates differently on the interview process now that it's 100% remote? How does it change things? And what questions do, candidates need to ask because they can't step foot in the office? I mean, I made offers to candidates, thankfully, that have not stepped foot in the office. So I'd love to hear from your perspective how you're coaching.
Twofold. One is, if you are made an offer, you need to get in writing when your start date's going to happen, because I have seen candidate start dates getting pushed back. And if you're leaving a job for a new opportunity and your start date gets pushed back a month, that's a whole month of lost income.
Yeah, that's
that's so rough. That's one of the biggest reasons why I feel like there's so many people that are hesitant to moving right now. Like a lot of the conversations that I'm having are like, hey, listen, I'm very interested in the company, would love to talk and just kind of learn more, but like I do not feel comfortable actually making that jump until things settle down. And that's a great point that you bring.
Yeah. And it's wrong. It's wrong that companies are doing that. And it makes me very mad, but it is a reality for job seekers that you need to be armed with getting it in writing when your start date's going to happen.
It's tough.
Yeah.
But it's also uncharted territory, right? Like, I mean, it's hard to hold a company like, listen, like you have a job in hand, you accepted an offer, you resign the other job. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I mean, this is unprecedented. What are you going to say? Sorry, I'm not going to take that job. And now you have nothing. I mean, it's a tough one. And I also don't know legally how much you could hold a company. I know there's laws in different states about like, if a company makes you an offer and you both sign it and it's countersigned, right? How could a company pull an offer, right? There's certain things around contingent on background checks, criminal checks, and all that stuff. But let's take that out of the water. Let's just say a company hires you, you give your resignation, and then all of a sudden the company can't afford to hire you anymore. Have you seen this happen? Have either of you seen this?
I actually, funny enough, I have. I have seen this. It was around November, and one of my friends, her sister moved up here for a job. And essentially what happened was contract was signed. She lived in Florida. She moved up to New York. Company said, you know what? We're shifting our sales strategy. And we're not going to start our BDR team until after we figured that out in the new year. That was like early November, almost end of October. And she moved her entire life. You
told me about this. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really
post. You rallied around her and helped her find a job.
I did. I hired her at my company at the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I have seen that. Obviously it was a long time ago. I'm not going to name and shame the company, but that was probably the most messed up situation that I have ever seen. 3 months.
Yeah, that's
cool. I've seen some cool. Have their jobs pulled already that they're planning to start in, and these are big Fortune 500, 100 companies have already taken these offers away.
But it's uncharted too. So getting back to the interview process, right? I mean, there's these. I see everybody posting these tips on how to do interviews on video, right? So there's a lot of things that still remain the same as far as preparation. Number one is research, and Sean and I, and I'm sure you know too, Sarah. There's nothing worse. There's nothing more of a turnoff as a surefire pass if a candidate does not do their research on the company. Right, but it's not it's not just research on the company's history and what they do and everything, but what are some of those like real deep value add shows that I give a crap questions that you urge candidates to ask during interviews?
The question that you're asking?
Correct. The question that candidates should be asking hiring managers on a call.
So
generally speaking, what type of questions?
Yeah. I would make sure that you spend time reading about the culture and their emphasis on inclusion and diversity, because those things really showcase who the company is at the heartbeat. And so go on their company page, read what they say there, and ask some questions about how they're adjusting their culture and if their culture remains the same during this time of online, and ask for a specific example of how they felt cared for during this time period. That's maybe a question that will catch people off guard, but you'll really get a sense of, is this a company that cares about their people, and are they putting people first during this time period? I'd also ask a question around what they're excited about in terms of future projects, or what are some big initiatives coming down the pipeline. You really want to know that this department that you're interviewing for is a part of what's going to happen next in the company's future, and that they're a big part of that strategy, and that the leadership has plans for the next 6 to 9 months, and that this department is growing.
That's great. No, that's great. I mean, one of the things that also added to kind of piggyback off what you were saying earlier, and just in terms of like communication, right? How to like impress, there's ways to ask certain questions that are just like, okay, that's a good question to ask, but like if you really want to like knock the socks off somebody, you ask it in a different manner, right? So for example, right, I could just sit back at the end of the interview and I could say, okay, great. Well, what's your long-term strategy? Like, what's the long-term strategy of the sales company? You could say that, or you could say to the hiring manager, hey, listen, I listened to, the yearly earnings call last week. I noticed that you guys were $300,000 short of your goal. What are you guys doing to, improve that? Like, how's it going to ship? Like, just simple ways of communication or simple ways of asking those sorts of questions could really make you seem like, okay, yeah, that's a good question. here, right? But then like, holy shit, this guy really did his homework. Like listening to conference calls, stuff like that, like that could really make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's another question which I think really shows that you care about yourself in this role, is asking, what does success look like in this position in the first 30, 60, 90 days, right? What are some of those key metrics? So you are really setting yourself up for success. And you also know a couple things too. Are they throwing you right into the fire and they're expecting immediate results? And some people are cool with that. They're like, hey, let's do this. Let's get right to it. And other people, they want to make sure that there's a proper on-ramp, right? I want to make sure that I can fully acclimate into a company, and especially now when there's added pressure and added work to connect with your colleagues remotely, understanding that you are going to be set up for success. And I think any good interview, because it works both ways too, right? There's bad hires. Right?
I think you hit on a point that I think is so important. As companies are running leaner,
Yep.
as people have made cuts, they're going to expect people who can jump in the flames and start running. And so if you're asking a lot of questions that demonstrate that you need training or that you need a lot of onboarding, that could potentially turn a hiring manager off.
100%.
And
100%.
Here's another curveball too. And I was having this conversation with somebody the other day where having experience working remotely is a feather in somebody's cap right now. If you're interviewing somewhere and you say, hey, listen, at my last job, I worked 75% remote and I still had X amount of productivity. I still hit my quotas, my numbers and everything. That shows that you could do that. Is that a new desirable skill?
I don't know.
I mean, gosh, I think a lot of people are hoping to get back in the office once.
Yeah. I mean, we've been home, we've been cooped up 24/7, you know.
People must
you know who we're cooped up with, 20.
I do think remote teams is going to be important. I've read some articles about how with the rising cost of real estate, people are recognizing that there's value in moving people home. And there's also value in being able to hire people in more rural areas and being able to potentially pay them less because there's a lower cost of living in those areas. So I think from a leadership perspective, if you can demonstrate that you can manage a remote team, that's going to be great. As an employee, I'm not sure that people are going to be measured on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting too. Like we talk about going back to work, and we're taking New York off the table here because New York is an anomaly, right? I spoke about it earlier today. It's saturated. We're on top of each other. It's completely different. But a lot of places around the country, they will be getting back to work soon. And it's going to be a delicate balance where some people legitimately do not feel comfortable going back to work. And it's really going to come down to how leadership really balances, again, that optimism with being realistic. Right? Like, do people feel comfortable? Do they feel they could, be going into an office? So like during an interview, and especially these days, like how does a candidate approach that conversation tactfully? Right? If it's something that means a lot to you, right? Like, how do you ask them, like, what are your plans? What are you thinking about? Like, and if it's something that you don't like how they're answering it, how do you respond to that?
Ooh.
I mean, this is new stuff. I mean, these are new questions.
It's a great question. I don't know that I have the right answer for this, but I think that if I were approaching it, I'd approach it delicately from a human resources perspective, and knowing that the company has to make sure to ensure safe work conditions. If you don't feel safe, then you potentially should reach out to an employment lawyer and see if they can provide some support to you. But it's the company's responsibility to ensure that you are safe. And it is reasonable in a pandemic to not feel safe to go into work if your company sets that expectation.
Yeah, that's certainly fair too. And I want to shift gears and talk about, the job search too, where there's going to be a lot of people out of work. What's the proper way? I know there's going to be a lot of empathy too, but talking about that employment gap during coronavirus, right? I mean,
I think people are going to be gracious. I'd love to know.
How could they not?
Yep.
But this is weird times. We've never approached this before. It's not like people are being laid off because of anything that they did. It's the economy shut down, and layoffs are, what are we at? Over 10% right now. That number is going to be growing. I think there's going to be a lot of grace during this time period. And if you were laid off, I don't think that people are going to look, or judge you harshly in any way.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely gonna be a tough one too. And let's kind of flip over to good old LinkedIn, somewhere where you've been thriving. So first and foremost, incredible amount of follower growth. And I think you do that by continuing to provide value, continuing to provide, actionable insights, and certainly branding yourself. And I don't know the exact number, but I think you've added like 200,000 followers since, we first connected. Definitely tremendous growth there. What's the secret behind that? Like, how are you continuing to just build this amazing following?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just consistent. Every day or almost every business day for the last almost 3 years, I've posted something on LinkedIn, and I try to make it original content. I try to make it actionable, and I invite people to engage. And I want people to share their thoughts, and I never have the viewpoint of my opinion is the best and only opinion. And I love to invite lots of experts to join me for the conversation. I value conversation. I also engage in other people's posts as well. And I think that is a help that helps too.
Yeah. And I see also you shifted your focus a little bit more international. How does that conversation shift? You know, there's some things that are very specific, you know, to the US, but what are some of those themes that really translate globally?
People. I think that it's so important to remember that at the bottom, you know, hiring happens because people connect with people, people hire people, and people create their own possibilities. And so when you think about what the language of recruitment is, it's networking and just having conversations with people. One person can change the entire trajectory of your job search.
That's how I got the contract that I have now. It was through LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean,
meeting somebody at a Grace Hopper event 2.5 years ago, and just staying in touch and connecting and commenting and just being, you know, linked up with them, and timing was just right. So it really works, man. It really works.
I mean, you're busy, Sara. You got clients, you got a family, you got kids. Like, how do you stay connected to everyone on LinkedIn? Like, how do you make yourself available and give so much time?
Oh man, I just prioritize it. I'm feeling so energized right now by the need to help people and just the impact of the work that I do. I'm sure you're feeling that as well, in that, you know, I'm at the sweet spot right now where the work that I'm doing is changing people's lives, and I'm helping people provide for their families. And at the end of the day, that feels really good. And so that keeps me going.
Oh, I absolutely love it, and that's pretty clear in your tone and your messaging that you actually care, and I think that's another reason, because people can relate to you, right? Like, you're not some guru sitting high up on your pedestal there, right? Like, you're talking from the heart and you're talking from experience, and I think that's something that's pretty clear. Sean, anything you want to jump in here on?
Oh man, no, I think
I give you the time to think about it, man.
I know, but I'm so caught up in the conversations and just listening and
that's cool
trying
too.
to. Yeah, you're the host of the show. Why are you putting it on me?
As I said before, sometimes a co-pilot needs to fly. What do you see, Sara, people doing wrong during this time, right? Like, what are some, like, from a personal branding kind of, if you're out there, like, you know, what are some of the things that you're seeing that are just not flying?
I can't say this enough. Do not put open to new opportunities on your LinkedIn headline.
No.
That is like rule number one, do not do that. And the reason I say that is you're wasting precious real estate on your LinkedIn page with words that people are not searching for. You know, I've held a recruiter seat and know how LinkedIn works. I'm sure you guys know how the LinkedIn backend works. When a recruiter is trying to find a candidate, they're not doing a search for looking for opportunities. They're doing a search for someone who matches the keywords of the job description that they're looking for. So if you're a SaaS salesperson, use SaaS sales or whatever keywords in your headline so that somebody can find you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
From a personal branding standpoint, other than that, right? Like, maybe like activity-wise, the type of content they post, like, what are you seeing that's working? Like, what do you think is working for people? What do you think they should get away from? Does it really matter in a job search? Like, what are some of your thoughts there?
I think it really does matter. And kind of going back to what Adam asked me earlier, how have you been able to grow? I think I've been really focused on not putting out fluffy content. Like, you're not going to see me share something that's like a puppy dog hugging a bunny rabbit, you know, in a park. Like, it might get a lot of views.
It works for somebody, some people on this platform, believe me.
like me.
You know, but that's just fluff. You've got to give people good stuff. So know who your target audience is. What does your target audience care about? My target audience is job seekers. If you, again, going back to that example of a SaaS salesperson, if your target audience is maybe CTOs, what do your CTOs care about? Write about what your target audience cares about. So where do they find their news? Are they getting news from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, from Technology Today? Where do they get their news? Be somebody who shares what's new and what's next online. Be considered a thought leader and craft and curate content that your target audience cares about.
I love it. I love it,
Bingo.
Sarah. That's awesome. And let's wrap this up. I've been asking all my guests, to share a personal silver lining and a professional silver lining that you've experienced over the last few weeks.
I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say the last 6 weeks have been really hard. I mean, you guys all have kids, and not only are you processing your own emotions of how you feel about being at home, and I'm an extrovert and it's hard, but you're also processing like your kids not getting to finish school and not getting to say goodbye to their friends. And so that's been hard. But I would say the silver lining is that I have a really awesome family, and I'm getting to spend a lot of time with them, and we played a lot of board games, and we've gone for a lot of walks and done some really sweet stuff together. And I just can't imagine having a better set of people to get to spend this time with. So from a personal perspective, I'm really happy there. From a professional, as I mentioned earlier, I just feel really mission driven right now and feel like I'm able to do what I was created to do, and love that I'm getting to help people right now.
That's fantastic. And Sarah, we certainly appreciate, all the great work that you're doing, providing on the platform here. Where could folks that can find you? Where could they learn more? Where could they connect?
Yeah, I'm obviously on LinkedIn, and you can also go to my website, www.briefcasecoach.com.
Leave us here with one key actionable tip for anyone out there to make their resume stand out.
Take a job description that you want to target. Look at the job description carefully. Get your highlighter pen out and highlight keywords from the job description. Having a targeted, focused resume will help you stand out in a crowd. You cannot write a one-size-fits-all resume that's going to serve you for the 100 jobs that you apply for on the job board. Your resume has to be focused towards the opportunity that you want.
Yeah, 100%. Let's riff on that for a minute before we close out too. This is critically important too. And my number one word that I say to every job seeker when they complain about not getting through, it's relevancy. Right? Us as a recruiter, Sean and I are both on the other side. We're the ones receiving the resumes, reviewing the applications, and we're looking for relevance, right? Believe me, I would love to have hour-long conversations with every candidate out of work, right? And talk about your transferable skills, which are certainly important too. But at the end of the day, we have a lot of open recs on our plate, and we're looking, let's call it how it is. We're looking for the most relevant candidate on paper, or those relevant candidates, filtering them down and finding the best of the best. So you got to put yourself in that position. Let's call it what it is, right?
When you have 100 candidates, you're only going to be able to call 5 to 10 of those, and you want to be able to call the 5 to 10 who look on paper like they fit for the job.
Yeah, that's right, Sean. I can't preach this enough, and people crap on us for saying like, "Oh, your recruiters are not being open. You're not listening to everyone's stories."
Listen,
I've had
the world is not a LinkedIn post. It's like you said, it's not rainbows, butterflies, kittens, and sunshine. If you are looking for jobs, like Sarah is saying, you have to take the time to target and make your resume relevant. You know what I mean? Just because you were doing A, B, C in here, you found in your own mind a translatable skill that might fit for another job. It's not the same. It's just not going to be the same. So you have to understand that. And we're not the bad guys. We're simply gatekeepers for our companies. Like, unless you want to pay us to go out and find jobs for you. Yeah. Perfect. Let's do that. But
exactly
the way the world works.
And Sarah, let me wrap this one on a good one here, right? And I asked you this, probably a year ago too. Let's see if it's changed at all. What's the greatest piece of advice you've ever received that you take action on every single day, and now especially more than ever?
I think care about people first has always been at the heart of what I've been about, and something that I really try to focus on in everything that I do is what is the best for this person. And sometimes that's not working with me. Sometimes that's working with someone else. Sometimes that's me taking an extra 5 minutes if our call's over and just giving that person a virtual hug because they really need it. And then sometimes that's, for people in my community who are struggling, figuring out ways that I can provide my services to them at a way that they can afford during this time. So people first, I don't know what I told you a year ago. Maybe
we'll rewind it. Probably something pretty close to that.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. We'll just play it back.
Yeah, we'll link up to that. We'll do a throwback Tuesday there. Sara, thank you so much for joining us. Remind us again, where could folks find you? Where could they connect with you?
Yep, LinkedIn, Sara Johnston, or www.briefcasecoach.com.
Awesome. Sean, thanks for being my co-pilot today. Sara, thanks for joining me, and everyone watching, thank you for following us. Tomorrow will be my weekly live podcast recording with partner over at Hirewell in Chicago, Mr. James Hornick himself. We're going to have a fantastic conversation about all things recruitment from an agency perspective, branding, some innovation that they're doing right now around candidate services, right? They're doing a lot of candidate consulting. I've seen a lot of pivoting going on. So we'll talk about there. Sara, Sean, thank you, everyone watching. Thank you for joining us on the podcast live. Catch us back tomorrow. Take care, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
And that is how